This episode is brought to you by Elevate OS, the only all-in-one community operating system. Elevate OS transforms property management, combining resident engagement, reservations, rent payments, maintenance, and concierge services into a single super app. It also uniquely integrates access control, intercoms, package lockers, and thermostats, eliminating app fatigue and redefining modern apartment living. Visit elevateos.com/MMN for a free demo and see how they can help you level up your operations. Annie Laurie, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Mike.
How are you today?
Doing fantastic. Just getting back from vacation and starting my Monday early with you.
I see this amazing tan that you have.
Maybe a little too sun-kissed, but it was worth it.
It's vitamin D, right? It's very healthy.
That's right. Vitamin D and like rejuvenation. Yeah. No wrinkle-causing agents here.
No. Well, I know it. Yeah, you're right. It is Monday morning and back from vacation. We're diving right into the week. I think it's 8 o'clock where we are, right?
Yes.
We're both in Georgia. So we'll give each other grace in terms of warming up and getting into the week. But I wanted to talk about, obviously, Reba is, I think, part and parcel of the reason we're coming together this morning, just to have a discussion. But I was wondering if you could sort of take a walk back in your life and tell us about your career track. I know you've been in and out of PropTech. You've been in and out of the operations side of the business. You've been in and around property management for, let's just leave the date out, but some bit of time. Like me, I have a gray beard. So anyway, talk to us about your career and what brought you to this moment in time where you're getting back together with Reba.
Sure. So like you said, Mike, I've been either in PropTech or in operations for about 25 years now, give or take. And I, like many in multifamily, sort of stumbled on it. My background, I have a master's in applied mathematics, which also was a little bit of a fluke. Most people meet me and they have no idea that I'm mathematically inclined, but I ended up studying applied math at the University of Georgia. And then the way I started was I had a job with a company called Aeronomics, which was a technology company focused on pricing and revenue management solutions for a number of different verticals based out of Atlanta. And Donald Davidoff and I actually started at Aeronomics on the same day in 1998 in the same orientation class. It was the two of us. And you can only imagine, Mike, I'm there. I'm like this bright and shiny, just graduated from the University of Georgia with my master's degree, first job. Yeah. And Donald has just sold his travel agency and is this MIT grad, like this rocket science engineer. And we're sitting there and we're introducing ourselves to one another. And I'm like, one of these things is not like the other. And I think I'm the one that is the square peg in the round hole. And anyway, that's kind of how we started together. But that was my first job, and I was the translation layer in understanding business requirements from companies like Disney and Ford and GE and TV New Zealand, and then translating those business requirements to our PhD statisticians and mathematicians who are writing models to forecast and optimize. And Archstone approached us about building a pricing and revenue management solution for multifamily. Donald was actually on that project. I was later on that project when we worked for Simpson Housing. And then when Donald left to go run pricing for Archstone, about a year later, I joined him to run pricing for the East Coast. So that was a very interesting kind of point in my career. And I think it is super helpful to kind of highlight, because when you're building tech solutions and you've never actually had to execute on making that stick within a company, that's a unique experience that one gains and can bring to the table from a street cred perspective later in life. So actually helping build LRO and then actually execute and run a company leveraging LRO was really cool. And so I did that for a number of years, took a small hiatus, had a couple of children, a couple of daughters, went back into multifamily. At that time, Archstone was selling the rights to Rainmaker. So Rainmaker ended up owning LRO and taking it to exit. And I was with Rainmaker for about 9 years and kind of wore every hat there. I think I was employee number 6 in the multifamily world with Rainmaker, helped grow the company, and then ultimately we sold to RealPage. And that was another kind of, okay, I'm going to take a pregnant pause. I call these pregnant pause. I
Yeah.
wasn't pregnant this time, but I was going to take a pregnant pause, kind of reevaluate what I wanted to do with my life. And lo and behold, a colleague called from Brookfield and said, hey, we are looking for somebody in our portfolio management group to really establish a data-driven culture and also oversee revenue management for our real estate sector. And I thought, I'm coming from this small company. We were just bought by this big company. I kind of wanted to go back small, but Brookfield opportunity was pretty attractive. And so I joined Brookfield and really worked. It was interesting. I got to work in a lot of places there. Yes, my focus was multifamily, but I got to dabble a little bit in student and I got to dabble a little bit in what we were doing globally, and in single family. And I did that and had a portfolio for the first 4 years that I was with Brookfield. And we had bought for a city to be our operating partner. And then 4 years into my time there, they were like, hey, Laurie, what about going back to the operations side? We need somebody to run IT, data science, revenue management, and marketing. So my final 3 years at Brookfield up until April of this year was on the operating side with 40,000 units, kind of running 4 divisions of the company. Um, and then I took another pregnant pause that I thought was going to be a little bit longer, but ended up being a couple of weeks. And I had been sitting on the board for Reba, and Donald and I had been having some conversations, and I was like, I really think I want to go back to a smaller company. I really like the PropTech side of things. And he was like, hey, what do you think about coming over and being a COO? And I'm like, Donald, we sort of started our careers together. We kind of can drive each other crazy, but we can complement each other in a way. Let's make sure that this is going to be a really good thing for both of us. And so we chatted for a couple of months, and then in May I joined Reba.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, you have quite the career. I want to go deep on something that you said early in what you were walking through there. And it is, and then I want to come back and ask some questions about your experience. You said something I think is very important, especially in a prop tech age, and that's marrying together the business side and the business outcomes and people who don't work in the business. What you used a term. What's the term? You were the person that kind of
I did the requirements gathering between like the end users and what they need, and it was the translation layer.
yeah. Talk to us about how important that really is. I read, just as a quick segue, not a segue, but a quick data point, Elon Musk's book, autobiography, and he talks about sitting down on the floor with the engineer and helping them understand what is their world versus what the consumer's world is. Talk to us about how important that relationship is in terms of translating math into actual business application.
I think that the sticky factor is really saying things in layman terms that the end user, whoever that end user is, can absorb, understand, and then really sell back to whomever their customer is. And on the side of the statistician or the mathematician, it could be a perfect mathematically accurate solution, but at the end of the day, if it doesn't solve the business problem, it really doesn't matter. And so the translation layer here for LRO was always, there's this complicated, and this parallels Reba on the rent side of things. There's this very complicated, mathematically accurate algorithm that has different constraints you're feeding it. And so whether that's exposure levels or your tolerance to various leasing thresholds, all of that is input into an objective function where you're solving for revenue. That all makes sense to the statisticians and the mathematicians. But at the end of the day, I need a price point or a series of price points that a leasing associate can look at, believe in, and then sell to their end customer. And so they have to believe in the value. And so I have to translate this math to this person that really just needs to be able to sell a price. And then I need to understand the world in which they operate and recognize, like, they may have a water leak, or somebody didn't show up for work, or they need to go walk 15 apartments that have just been made ready. And all they really need is this price point to communicate to an end customer. So forget all of the statistics and the mathematics. Their problem is really, hey, tell me what the price is for apartment 1A. Let me make sure that I believe in that and I can sell the value to the customer. So that translation layer is important, and we wear different hats on both sides of that equation.
Yeah, I appreciate you unpacking that a little bit. I've often thought there are times when prop tech companies come into the multifamily space, they have a great solution, but from my perspective, having been an operator for 30 years, I think to myself, hey, you haven't really spent time with the end user. You've sort of hypothesized this problem, and you have a theory that there is this problem in the multifamily space, but maybe there really isn't that problem, or it's not a problem, at least the way you're thinking about it. If you just spent some time with the end user and the consumer, with a liaison between the two, you might come up with a better solution. I want to go back. So you've spent time in PropTech, you spent time in operations, coming back to PropTech. Can you talk about your history in terms of the lessons you've learned as a leader, a driver of outcomes that you are going to make application of now that you're in the COO role at Reba?
So I think there are a couple of things here. I think one of them is intellectual curiosity in every aspect. I really think that staying curious is the game changer in multifamily today. There's all kinds of stuff that is coming in and out. And that's something that has been very important, regardless of whether I was on the prop tech, the operating side, leading small teams, leading big teams, being an individual contributor, being, a leader of giant organizations. It's intellectual curiosity, and that's something that everybody can connect to. And so when I talk to my daughters, when I'm engaging with teams, when I'm sitting on a board of directors, I'm always like, gosh, what do we need to be thinking about next? And how do we stay engaged in whatever is going on in this world of ours to make ourselves more efficient and better and thinking, a couple of steps ahead? And so I think that that's something that has kind of evolved throughout my career, but I also think maybe since birth, I've been kind of an intellectually curious person, and always wanted to kind of just peel away the layers of the onion to really understand kind of what's at the root of anything. And I think that's probably why I studied math too. I like answers to problems and willing to kind of just chip away at it until I find it. So I think that's probably one of the key things that has kind of run throughout the gamut of my career, and something that as a leader I think is super important.
Do you, this is just an observation I'm making, and if it's false, you can say as much, but in that intellectual curiosity, if you're sitting in a boardroom or whatever forum you're sitting in, and you're questioning assumptions, you're questioning the future, you're hypothesizing about where we're going or what we're doing, but you're doing it because you're just peppering questions. At least that's that's the thing I'm telling myself. In those moments, you're probably creating a healthy tension with people that have their own intellectual curiosity, but it's creating outcomes in their own head or stories they tell themselves that are in opposite. How important is that sort of creative tension or healthy tension when you're sitting in a room like that in terms of creating an outcome that's productive for everybody?
I think healthy tension is really important. And I think that peppering with questions just to question is not a good thing. I think that can almost be like kind of like that Tarzan moment where you
Sure.
may be trying to appear, one might be trying to appear smarter, holier than thou. I mean, there are different ways to kind of describe that. Peppering or asking questions to make the group challenge the status quo and to potentially think a little bit differently. Or you're really trying to get a point across inside of a room where there's some groupthink going on. If you can do it in the right way, and create that moment, that perfect healthy tension that then makes a light bulb go off and advances the conversation in a different way. That's a beautiful thing. It doesn't always happen, but it is a beautiful thing. And I've had those moments in my life where I'm like, gosh, thank you for challenging me, because I would have never gotten there on my own without having this kind of healthy dialogue. And yes, did it get tense at some moments, and was I challenged and had to move out of my comfort zone? Absolutely, yes. But that's the way we all get smarter, more efficient, better, and how we kind of round out our rough edges.
Definitely. I'm just curious, are there frameworks that you use to question assumptions or other things in that kind of setting? Or is it just innate in you that you're keying off the information in the room and you just light bulb moments and you just form your questions that way?
I don't know that there's a framework per se, but I really do try to be an active listener. And I think
Mm,
that is something that is very tough to do, because we all come in with an agenda or something that we're trying to move forward, and those may not always be aligned. And if you can pause, not multitask, and again, I'm preaching to my own choir here, but stay engaged in the conversation, really listen with the intent of hearing kind of those underlying messages that may not necessarily be communicated in words, but someone is really passionate about something, trying to get their point across. Listen for those things, and sort of like what you're doing, tee off of those and really seek to understand. I think that is something that is kind of a lost art, the art of listening. And if done correctly, then it's not necessarily a framework, but it's the healthiest way to have dialogue with one another.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I think you're right. There are so many things vying for our attention these days. Our phone is a distraction. Everything's a distraction, or it could be classified as a distraction. But if you can get yourself in a mindful space where you can actively listen to the person across from you, always believing the best, right? Trying to
Right.
believe the best in what somebody's trying to communicate, but it's so hard. The world's pulling at you every single second.
For
To
sure.
stay
For sure. And
engaged.
listening for the positive intent. That's the other thing. I think that trying to remove what you think somebody's motivation might be and give them grace and listen with positive intent is a tough thing to do. But it's something, again, if we're trying to have a healthy conversation, I need to give you the benefit of the doubt and really seek to understand what you're trying to, get across before I react.
So true. So true. For those of you listening out there, that is a key lesson here. Um, I want to shift gears for a second, talk about um, Reba's mission, sort of rethinking how rental housing or multifamily uses data. As the CEO, what are the levers that you're coming in? You're more or less fresh to the position. I think you're 45 days in, 60
Oh,
days.
no, 60 now, 60
60
this
days,
year.
60 days in. What are the various levers that, based on the 60 days, based on your history with Donald, that you think you need to pull to sort of help the vision forward?
So first of all, you promoted me to CEO in that one sentence. So I think that's going to go early on. You were like, yes, you're a CEO. I'm like, yes, I've already gotten a promotion in 60 days. No, I'm just teasing. The mission of Reba, as you know, Mike, is to make smarter decisions faster. And so we have
Yeah.
this connected analytics platform with a bunch of different solutions, but they really are powered by the operational data that is coming from all of these disparate silos. Bring that together so that you have actionable insights. I think that my role in this super fast paced growth company, about 50% of the employees have joined kind of in the last 6 months. We have more than doubled in size. And so you can imagine it was this small and mighty group that was just churning and kind of all got each other. And now we've doubled and we've got to create some operational backbone, I would say. And so I see myself as taking the vision that Donald and Chris started and making it scalable into a true, we got to scale our execution, and we have some processes
Mm.
that we need to optimize as a byproduct of growth. And so I want to create that operational backbone and make sure that we're practicing what we preach. We want to make smarter decisions faster. And so we need to make sure that we've got the infrastructure to do that within our own company.
I can appreciate this. And COO. I can.
Oh, good.
That's awesome. I'll call Donald afterwards.
So it's all good. He will laugh. He'll be like, yeah, she's already after my job. So
Great. Um, I've spent time in the COO role in a multifamily operation company, two different companies, and I've still to this day I'm still trying to figure out exactly what a COO does because you're wearing all these hats, right? You're the keeper of the culture, you're the keeper of the processes, the systems, the disciplines, the routines, and you're the chief problem solver sometimes. And how do you think about an approach just from a high level? Hey, I'm the COO, and these are the things that I think I need to focus on in order to move this business forward. Are there like a top 3 or a top 5 things that you're just consistently and constantly focused on?
I'm always focused on our people and the talent that they bring to the table, because at the end of the day, we're not going to have a company without great talent. And
Mm-hmm.
so making sure that the talent is in the right seat, that it is great for where they currently are, but also looking for opportunities for people that have ambition and high potential. What do they want to do? What can we task them with doing to help them grow and develop and feel fulfilled in their career and at their in their time with Reba. So people are definitely first. Um, it's sort of cliche, but efficiency. If you have to do something more than 2 times in a manual way, to me, it is prime time for automation and figuring out how to do it in a more efficient manner. The first time it may be kind of a fluke and you think you're just doing, some kind of analysis or some kind of exercise. But when you're asked to do it again, you're like, oh gosh, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I need to automate this. So I'm looking for that kind of areas where we can become more efficient. And then I think the third one is trying to figure out the right level of cross collaboration between
Mm.
teams. Because as you grow, as a company grows, um, there were in the early stage, everybody's wearing every hat.
That's
And then
right.
you can almost swing the pendulum to the side of, okay, well, this is kind of the swim lane that I need to stay in. And you lose a lot of that cross collaboration. But it's sort of like that healthy tension conversation we had early on. There are swim lanes, but there are sometimes that those swim lanes need to have the lane line completely ripped out. And there does need to be more cross collaboration. And figuring out that is one of the toughest things to do, because you don't want necessarily it to be a free for all. But there are times where it also can feel like hot potato. Okay, well, this was in my swim lane. I'm going to throw it over into your swim lane. And it becomes just this jumbled mess of inefficiency. So I think the people and figuring out the talent, making things more efficient, and then figuring out the right blend of cross collaboration are 3 areas that I'm intimately focused on right now for us.
I love that. I'm going to use your swim lane analogy. That's going to stick with me. It was a perfect way to describe that because there are times, to your point about ripping out the lane, that has to happen. So,
Sure.
um, I want to put on your sort of looking out at the horizon kind of hat and
Yeah.
talk to us about. I mean, who knows? I think about the accelerating pace of innovation in technology, and you can't really look back 100 years. You have to look back like 5 minutes
Yep.
and extrapolate from there.
Sure.
From your perspective, playing in that space, what do you see impacting? If you want to speak broadly about technology as it relates to the world, or if you want to speak more specifically about technology or Reba as it relates to multifamily, do that. But what do you see over the next 5 to 10 years?
Oh, so, I mean, we can't have this conversation without talking a little bit about AI. It
Yeah.
is probably one of the most disruptive, but the most powerful things kind of in our universe right now.
True.
And I think figuring out and figuring out what we figure out today is already latent tomorrow.
That's right.
But within Reba right now, it's figuring out how to power our platform with true AI insights. Again, when we think about making better decisions faster, how do we serve those up in a way where we're not tasking an analyst with, okay, all this data has been pulled together, but now you need to look at it and go do something with it. Looking at it and going to do something with it is something that we can absolutely leverage AI to do. And so in real estate, the goal is to optimize value creation, minimize risk, and ultimately improve operational ROI. And so when we think about all of those things together, data is critical, and that's what Reba's here to do. But I think like in the world in which we live right now, what are we going to do with AI? How are we going to do it? And how quickly can we get to kind of that first epic point, learn something from it? Sometimes it might, I mean, sometimes the learning might be we need to pitch everything that we've done to date. And sometimes it may be, okay, well, we learned a little bit. How do we get a little bit better tomorrow? And that's kind of a fundamental operating tactic is just get a little bit better every day. And when you fail at something, you actually have learned something, you failed forward, and don't do it again and do it smarter the next time. And so that's one of the big strategy. It tees off or ties back to intellectual curiosity. The world of AI is going to change. It already is. It's changing the way in which we do business, regardless of if real estate technology or whatever anybody is. That is something that is top of mind almost every minute of every day, like, because it plays into efficiency. How do we do this better? So that's one thing that I'm thinking big picture wise.
Yeah, I think it's it's easy to envision a day where a lot of, if not all of, the routine work that we do today, both at the corporate level and even at the on-site level, just goes away completely. I often think that, or I use this as an analogy, Amazon, you go there, you put in a search term, you find the thing you want, you click a button, and it's sort of like a 1 or 2 or 3 step thing, and it's pretty efficient. But what you don't see is all of the millions of things that happen behind the button, right?
Yep.
After you press that button and all these things that happen. And multifamily is not quite there, but there is a day where I think in your world of, in my head, you're moving toward predictive analytics, in that all this data is being served up, it's being put into a warehouse, it's being structured, and then the next obvious phase, or at least in my head, is that you're going to be able to create data that predicts and informs my next move, and sometimes it's going to make that move for me.
Yeah, that is, it's scary and also incredibly exciting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
both things. I mean, you sit there and you're like, this is probably the most frightening thing that I can, not the most, but one of the most frightening things that I can try and think through, because I can't even think through everything that it's going to do. But
Yeah.
at the same time, to live in an age where like we're running businesses and this is what we're faced with is also incredibly exciting. And so it's like, gosh, I feel like sort of polarized here. But we've got to figure it out because it's moving faster than any of us are moving. And so what does that mean? And you described it beautifully. Everything that's happening behind that button, it actually goes even back to what you asked early on, being that translation layer and understanding business requirements, and then being able to translate those to a statistician or a mathematician. Same thing here. I'm pushing the button, itemize everything that's going on behind the scenes, and let's figure out how to automate it. And then once it's automated, serve up something that is exactly right for that end customer, so that like it's almost a mindless process.
Yeah, that's a very good way to sort of sum that up. And
I don't know if it's
it
good or not. It was a very long-winded way to say
no,
it.
it's, I mean, it's, I think to be concise about AI today in any sort of response, you
Yeah.
just can't. To your point, it's all the things that you struggle or can't even think through. It's
Correct.
just, it's amazing to me. Okay, let's think as we draw to a close here. 12 to 18 months from now, how would you define success, your time there, the influence that you've had on the business in the next 12 to 18 months? How would you define success for yourself and for the company?
Great talent stays with the company, doesn't leave. That's probably first and foremost. Secondly, is that we're way more efficient than we are today. We're doing more with either the same or, slightly more. We have tremendous financial success. And so I'd love to 12 to 18 months from now, double our growth. That's pretty bold. We'll see if that happens, but fingers crossed, I think we can do it. And that AI is a currency within Reba. And so when we talk about this connected analytics platform, I would love for connected analytics to actually take root in multifamily, something we talk about, but it's not really, it's kind of what centralization, I guess, was when it was introduced 5 or 7 years ago. But connected analytics is about connecting people, connecting data, breaking down silos, and really having this common data language that fuels and propels your companies. And so connected analytics taking root in multifamily would be a huge success. So probably those are the first things that come to mind.
I like it. I want to end cap with asking you, is there anything that I've not asked you that you think is important for our viewers, for our listeners, as it relates to Reba, yourself, or any other thing you want to talk about?
You hit on one of my key things, which was intellectual curiosity. Anybody I ever talked to, when they ask kind of a gauge of success and how to work their way into a company, I'm like, always be intellectually curious, because that's going to be something that differentiates yourself. The other thing that, just as kind of a tidbit, and it's probably motherly advice, but it's also advice as a professional, is to always make other people smarter. I tell my girls this, and they actually did a little interview to introduce me to Reba. And one of the ways, don't worry about credit. A lot of people are really hung up on getting credit for something. The credit is going to come in due time. And if you make people smarter and you reach your hand down and you pull somebody up alongside of you, that's going to go so much further and benefit you in the long term. And the credit will come. You don't need to worry about that. And so those would be two things that I think, regardless of role in life, where you are in life, if you're intellectually curious and you don't worry about getting credit, it's going to serve you well.
Annie Laurie, that is wonderful, wonderful advice. But no, I mean that. Thank you for sharing that with our audience. Let's wrap by allowing you the opportunity to tell people where they can find out more about Reba, more about yourself, where they might be able to reach out to you directly if they have questions.
Absolutely. So our website is getreba.com. It will explain everything about connected analytics and all of the different solutions that we have. I'm on LinkedIn, Annie Laurie McCulloh. My email is almcculloh@getreba.com. You'll see my name spelled under my picture here. So McCulloh is kind of a weird spelling. But we would love to hear from you. And thanks, Mike. I really have appreciated our time together.
Yes, and thank you. And we'll link all that stuff up in the show notes so people can connect with you. And I really appreciate you investing some of your time here with us early on a Monday morning.
Next time you see me, I'll be a little less tomato-faced, not coming back from the beach, but all good.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie Laurie.
Thanks, Mike.